Hey, Lynette. Hi, Lynette. Can you hear me? Lynette?
Yes, Jennifer, how are you?
Hi.
Yes,
Good. How you doing?
good. Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, it flew right by, that's for sure.
It
I was just
does
wondering
fly, doesn't
if
it?
you have a little oh, sorry. Do you have a little flag or do you want me to share a screen of one?
One. But thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, I was just thinking of it. Thanks.
They all look so serious.
Just thinking. Just thinking.
Get to be invisible again. Dear Santa, I want a new laptop for Christmas that has a camera that works. Your friend, Mary Smith.
I'm sure he heard that, Mary.
I hope so. I figured if I started writing early, maybe it would happen. How is everybody?
Doing well,
Good,
thanks.
thank
How
you.
about you? Hmm. There's Paul.
And we have the Lone Ranger there. I like that. Some of us just go completely blank and, you know, others just, there he is.
All right. Steve or Jennifer, do you know if we're expecting Jerry tonight or if he's not going to make it?
I haven't heard anything from Jerry.
Okay. It is 6 o'clock. I think we should go ahead and get the meeting going. So it is 6 p.m. And it is Tuesday, November 9th, 2021. And I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order at this time. Could everybody, hopefully everybody can see the flag in the background behind me. If you could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the
of the United
flag
States
of the United
America,
States of
and to
America,
the republic
and to the
for which it
republic
stands,
for which it
one
stands,
nation,
one nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty
indivisible, with
and
liberty
justice
and
for
justice for all.
all.
Okay,
Thank you.
Lynette, I just heard from Jerry and he's trying to get into the meeting. Okay.
Okay, okay. We'll go ahead and get going. So roll call. I am Lynette Kelsey, police judge. Rob Connell,
Here.
Deanne Powell,
Here,
John Jennings,
Here.
Paul Hingen, Paul, did you say here? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mary Smith
Here.
and Rich Barrows. You're muted.
I thought he said that he couldn't talk right now,
Okay.
but I see that he's here. Can I vouch for him?
I see he's here too.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Agenda approval. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add to the agenda, remove, change?
I'd like to get some kind of information on the banners over on Argentine that are going to be corrected.
Okay.
Does
Under staff
anybody
item.
have that, or is that just, something that I'd like?
Well, we can add it to staff items and see if there's any update or not.
I'd like to add a little discussion about the Bighorn Apartments also.
Okay,
And possibly the Christmas decor down on 6th Street.
okay.
If you're looking for volunteers, I'll help you guys out. Throw my hat in
Well,
the ring.
let's talk about it. 6th Street Christmas deck. Anything else? All right, with those items added to staff items, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Audience business. Members of the audience have 5 minutes to present any matter of interest not already on the agenda. And I understand we have Kathy Grant here with us tonight to bring something to our attention. Thank you. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you. Are we ready?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. I'm Kathy Grant. I'm owner and occupant at 1782 Mountain Creek Drive here in Georgetown. And I'm representing our HOA tonight with concerns about the lot across the way. It's lot, I believe, zoning area 75 between 17th and 18th between Alvarado and I-70. A couple of years ago, they started, without letting us know they were going to do this, loading tons of wrap into that area, which is zoned gateway commercial. And under no criteria for that zoning does this meet the requirements. For 6 weeks, they loaded the wrap, the recycled materials in at night from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. And I talked to Kent at the time, and he said CDOT was giving it to the town. There was no other place to put it. And so we sort of relented, but it's becoming, the mountains of wrap are unsustainable, really. They're not doing what he said they would, emptying it in a year as he had said they would. And I think we need to look at the environmental as well as the livability, as well as the commitment to the zoning that we have that under. And as far as environmental, it's not considered hazardous material, but there are studies that show that groundwater leaching of lead can be an issue when it's left open. It's supposed to be covered and on a solid surface, number one. It was also loose, which means there's silica. And silica is a problem with continued exposure for lung issues. 2 weeks ago, CDOT came in from 8:30 to 4 and loaded tons of cement blocks in there. And it was incredible. 2 days later, they moved it all under complaint, but it's become an eyesore. It's not safe. It's not being used for the purpose that it was intended to be used for, which I think would be a very good purpose. The optics are terrible for residents and tourists alike. The whole area is zoned gateway commercial. So what we're trying to do there is create an opportunity. The Georgetown, with its geographic limitations, should be taking advantage of, rather than loading that up with materials that have just made the whole area almost unlivable at times. And I think that a small shelter could even be built there. Pamphlets highlighting activities, use it as event parking. The event parking sign went up when I approached Kent about the original wrap being put in there. And it's just become so far from what it's supposed to be used at that I wonder what the plan is in perpetuity. Is this going to be like this forever? Because that is not the commitment of the zoning ordinance. I'm looking at my notes here to think if I can, I mean, you all know, you've seen it, you know what's going on there. So I guess my question is, what's the plan for that lot? Yeah, are we going to clean it out and use it for the purpose it was intended? During daytime hours, please. I could go into a lot more detail, but I'm not sure it's necessary. If you have any questions about my claims, then I'd be glad to answer them rather than just go on and on.
Okay. All right. Appreciate your concern and thank you for bringing it to our attention. I guess I had observed over the course of the last couple years, the piles were not static. They didn't just grow. They grew, they were put there, they got used, other material got brought in. So it wasn't, I thought things were, that area was being used as a transition place for material. And we have used quite a lot of the material on our roads and parts of the lot itself. I also believe that the event parking sign, it seemed to coincide with an event and that we were actually using it for event parking. So I'm not sure about the timing on that, absolutely. So I think it's a good thing that we can discuss that with the town administrator, our interim, Steve, and he can work with Scott Schaefer, the road and bridge superintendent, and we should be able to manage that perhaps better than it has been managed. But thank you for bringing it to our attention. Steve, did you have anything to add to that?
Not really. Scott and I have talked about it, and the intention was when those the barricades, concrete barriers showed up. There were only supposed to be 4 of them, and they ended up dumping 20 of them. So he jumped on the contractor very quickly and got that removed. I think I've talked to you, police judge, with regard to the millings, and they've been there for quite some time. And that's up to the board how they want to do that. But I do know that Scott was going to try to reduce any further access to that property, uninhibited access, I should say, and put gates up. But it's Christmas decoration week, so he's been busy with that.
Sure. Okay.
Am I allowed to comment at all on that?
Yeah, please do. Go ahead.
I don't understand why we would, thank you. Why would we put up gates if it's event parking? And this was a question I had. I understand not wanting people to just dump things there as is happening on other property over here, but we want people to park there, and you're correct. They were parking there for a few bicycle events, this and that, but it's not an optimum situation over there for parking by any stretch of the imagination. And it's not really safe. And it's not what it was supposed to be used for. And it's horribly ugly. I mean, there's just no getting around that. It just is horribly ugly. So I'm just thinking that gates are, I don't understand why you'd use gates if you're still going to try and use it for event parking. As Randy the cop said, gates can be opened.
True. Yeah, let's go. We'll look into it. We'll discuss what the best options are. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Jennifer, do you know if we've got anybody else for public or audience business?
We do not.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on, we have the payables. The payables that we have before us are from October 22nd through November 4th, 2021. Anybody have any comments or questions on the payables?
I have a question. It's not really on the payableness of them, but at the bottom line of Road and Bridge, I wondered what hardline equipment was. And it says something about ready driver and extricator, and I don't know what those are. I just want to know what they are.
Okay. That I don't know. So we can find you an answer, but if there's nobody here tonight that knows,
Scott can fill you in. I think he's going to be on later. Might just hold your question and tell them it is a piece of equipment they use. And I don't know if it fits on the end of the backhoe or not, but you might get more specifics from Scott.
Okey-doke, thank you.
okay. Any other questions on the payables?
I'll make a motion to approve the payables dated October 22nd through November 4th, 2021.
I'll second, John.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the payables from October 22nd through November 4th, 2021 as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. The minutes that we have are from our last meeting, which was on October 26, 2021. It was a regular meeting of the board. Any questions or comments on those minutes?
I have a comment or an addition or something.
Okay,
On page 2, professional services contract with Town of Georgetown and Bob Hamilton.
Yes.
It says it passed unanimously, and I remember distinctly voting against it. I even got a laugh because I said I thought the project was not in Georgetown's best interest.
you're correct. I remember that too.
Okay. I can make that change. Thank you.
Jen, could you put my reason in too, please?
What is your reason?
That the project is not in the best interests of the Town of Georgetown.
Thank you. Any other corrections to the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the corrected minutes from October 26, 2021,
I'll second it.
As corrected?
as corrected.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the October 26, 2021 meeting as corrected. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Next we have, and you've got a written update from Bob Hamilton on the project status of the Strauss Park restroom installation. I don't believe he was able to join us tonight, so if you do have any questions, we'll have to pass them along. And in that same section, you've got the billing, the invoice that we received from East Slope Excavating for the work that has already been done to prepare the site. And then you've also got proposed work in the form of a memo. So just informational, just to bring us up to date on where we are expense-wise on that project as well. Anybody have any questions on that? Any of that? Seeing none, we will move on. Agenda item number 2 is board committee appointments to the electric-wide readiness plan stakeholder group. And you've got the email from Beth Luther in your packet. You've also got the attachment, the info sheet on that. And I don't know that I can answer any questions on that, but is anybody from the board interested in serving in that capacity on that new group? I figured it might be difficult. Go ahead.
When do they meet?
That's the that's the $1 million question here. They have not determined that. And my feeling was if they met during the day, it might make it difficult for many of you. I could certainly make time in my day to do that. And I'd be very willing to do that. I think there are long-term 2 times a month. There's a chat memo here, a chat from Beth Luther. She says we will meet about 1 to 2 times a month via focus groups and individual interviews. I guess
I can do that, Judge Kelsey, if you'd like me to.
That would be wonderful.
Okay.
That would be excellent. The meetings are gonna start in November and run through June of next year. Is that correct, Beth?
Yeah, we might actually be done before that. We are thinking that we'll be done in the spring. And I did talk to our consultant today, and they did express lots of focus groups and individual interviews. And, you know, Lynette, they might even come and approach the mayor's police judge of each municipality as well, just to ask some questions. But we would just love some feedback from somebody in the town that could maybe share some ideas about, hey, you know, besides what we have now, here's another great place to put EV chargers.
Right, right.
Awesome.
Well, and it also looked like there was some focus on increasing the number of electric vehicles as well. And that ends up being a budget question and long range planning kind of question for the town, which you know, we're kind of through the budget session for this year, but it could definitely be a focus for next year. So,
yeah,
and years beyond. So thank you, Rich. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Rich. Awesome.
So there is a recommended motion. Anybody else have interest in doing this? I mean, I think it's great. So just checking. Don't want to snatch it away.
I'll make that motion to appoint Rich Barrows to represent the town of Georgetown on the new countywide electric vehicle readiness plan stakeholder group.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Before he changes his mind.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Rich Barrows to represent the town of Georgetown on the new countywide electric vehicle readiness plan stakeholder group. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Oh, wonderful, unanimous. Thank you so much, Rich. Okay, and thank you, Beth, for jumping in there to answer some questions. All right. And next we have board committee appointments. And these are positions that had been filled by Kent Brown, who has left us. And let me get to that page. I did, just to give you guys a little bit of additional information, particularly on that listing on our table, which says I-70 All Matters IGA reps and the I-70 Transit and Revenue Study Committee. I did speak with Amy Saxton today. She works for the county, particularly in, well, she wears a lot of hats, and one of them is transportation kind of liaison. And she straightened me out on the different roles and different committees, because when I went to the county Board of County Commissioners appointment list, they have several I-70 related committees, boards, management teams, etc. And so among those, so the coalition is a specific stakeholder group of people along the corridor, plus additional stakeholders. And that was included in an email that Jennifer sent out to all of us. The other ones that would fall under that I-70 All Matters category would be the I-70 Collaborative Effort, the I-70 CSS Project Management Team, I-70 Coalition Technical Advisory Committee, and then there's also an I-70 Task Force. So when specific projects come up, they pull a separate group together to review the memorandum of decision, I believe it's called, and that falls under those, any or some of those additional categories. So my thought was, Cindy Neely suggested that we just wait for the appointment of the permanent administrator. I wondered if anybody on the board would be interested. I'm certainly willing to step forward and be Cindy Neely's alternate on all of those. We can probably scratch the I-70 Transit and Revenue Study Committee off.
Lynette?
Lynette froze.
Lynette froze.
Unless, Beth, do you think that'll ever be reinstated? Yes, Cindy's, I didn't see you. Sorry. Am I back?
Can
Go
I,
ahead, Cindy.
can I speak to this for a minute?
You certainly may. Thank you.
Okay, the revenue committee that you're talking about is actually looking for additional revenues to fund Floyd Hill. It's been an ongoing project for a while. I don't think that the town necessarily needs representation on that committee.
Got it.
I think the county has fully covered our needs. There are defined seats on the collaborative effort. It is a group that was put together in 2008, and there are defined seats. We can't choose to join it. The town of Georgetown does not have a defined seat. Clear Creek County does, but the town of Georgetown does not have a defined seat on the collaborative effort. If at some point somebody really wants a diagram of how all this fits together, I'll be happy to do it. But I should also add, I am a paid consultant to Clear Creek County and have been for the last 15 years on CDOT issues. And so that's why I'm speaking to this. The town of Georgetown has its own membership to the I-70 coalition.
Yes.
What happened was that a number of years ago, there was a large disagreement in the I-70 corridor about what should happen next with the highway. And in a whole environmental study was done that was essentially rejected from one end of this corridor to the other, from Garfield, from Jefferson to Garfield County. All the county commissioner, everybody rejected it. And at that point, the commissioners of Jefferson, Clear Creek, Summit, and Eagle, and Garfield decided they would get together and see if they could bring all the governments together, and if all of those governments could agree on what should happen in the corridor. And that's what the I-70 Coalition did. And that's what the coalition is. It is a variety of all kinds of jurisdictions in the corridor, the towns, and at this point, other entities join it too. It, I think, is very important for the town of Georgetown to stay at that table, because that's the place that ideas for the future of I-70 get discussed. So if there is a single group that the town really needs to engage in, it's that. And typically our town administrators have been the representative to that. It certainly can be, some towns send their town administrators, some mayors come, some, it depends on however the town wants to do it. You can choose whatever representative you want. I have been the alternate behind that person for a number of years. I was there when the coalition was born, and so it there is some long sort of old history that hangs out with me. But I think it's very important. And at some point, I think it would be very beneficial for the town of Georgetown to get an update on the kinds of things the coalition is involved in. As it worked out, the coalition was successful in working with CDOT to make their idea of the future be CDOT's idea of the future, which is memorialized in a thing called the Record of Decision. And so the coalition promotes the implementation of that Record of Decision. They also do a lot on travel demand management, and lots of interesting things come from the coalition. But the day that CDOT wants to work from Empire Junction to Eisenhower Tunnel, and that day is coming, it's going to be very important to be able to go to that coalition of governments and say, look, this is what we in a landmark district think about what they, it gives us a wider base to have discussions about the future of the interstate through our landmark district. So I consider the coalition to be the most important. I think it would be wonderful. It's certainly if one of the selectmen would come, or if Police Justice Kelsey is willing to attend, that would be, I think the coalition would like to see that represented. And the other thing is that Margaret Bowes, who heads up that coalition, would be happy to come and talk to this board sometime. And I think it's worth scheduling that and giving it a half hour of your time at some meeting to let Margaret describe what the coalition is and what it's doing these days.
Okay.
And there are a couple of other incidentals. Margaret just sent out today the amount of money that Colorado is scheduled to get for out of the infrastructure package. And it is impressive.
Okay.
And one of the things I think that we should thank Beth Luther for, one of there's a lot of money in it for EV, expansion of EV. And I think what she is doing is positioning our county in a way to be, Beth smells future money. It is quite a talent to have. But she does. And that's exactly what she is doing in getting the whole EV situation, getting us prepared to say, hey, we got it all laid out. Just, help us get it done.
Yeah.
So I see I see her doing that on EV and on bus shelters. And so we will attempt to, both of them, which can get funded through infrastructure money potentially.
Okay, thanks, Cindy. You clarified what I thought I had clarified with Amy, but it wasn't completely solid. So thanks for the additional information. Since we don't have a permanent administrator at this time, I think I'm personally willing to step up and be Cindy's alternate until we do figure that out in the future. And perhaps it does go back to the administrator and I could take a third alternate, a sub-alternate position thereafter. But I think it's important to have backup. So in the near future. So if that's agreeable to everybody, I believe there are some other appointments. The Farmers Highline Canal Park proxy. I don't have a whole lot of information on that.
Well, I'm the alternate and I don't know that much about it myself.
Okay.
I was the alternate. Is Jennifer there or is she not there?
She's here.
I'm here.
Oh, there you go. So you sent an email to me about that, and I wish I knew more. I know more about Aqua, which is the Upper Clear Creek Watershed Association, but did Ryan go to that meeting? Do you know that?
Yes, Ryan goes, and yeah.
Okay. I mean, I can go if I just am given a little bit of heads up, but
sure.
I work.
Yep.
I know Ryan was suggesting Carl to be an alternate if no board member wanted to do it.
I'm more than willing to do it. I just need to know if, somebody needs to give me a heads up that I need to go to the meeting.
Sure.
Okay. Well, you're the second alternate for UCCW. I
remember.
Okay.
And then that Farmers Highline Canal, what do you know anything about that?
I do not.
Yeah, I think your email was asking me if I knew something about it. So
yeah.
Never been briefed, really.
Okay. And I never have either. So in that case, what we might want to do is move you up to the regular representative or leave you as alternate, and we just leave the, you can represent us at any meetings until we do have a town administrator. We can just change that to town administrator as the primary on the Farmers Highline Canal proxy. How does that sound to everybody? Jerry, do you have any information on this one?
Farmers Highline Canal is a ditch company, and it's a major ditch going through the Denver metropolitan area. I'm trying to think, its head gate must be on Clear Creek, because of course that would impact Georgetown. The intake is not as high up as Georgetown. It's, probably near the Front Range. But it serves a whole raft of properties out on the plains. And I suspect that we have, the town either has water rights in it, or it is, in fact, you'd have to have water rights. We could ask Cindy Covell what the nature and size of our ownership is, but that's what's going on with that ditch.
Okay. Would it make sense to ask either Cindy Covell or our water engineers for more information and possibly contact information for that group? Because Jennifer doesn't have it
Yeah.
and I sure don't. So, okay.
Absolutely, that's easy to do, and I think that'd help inform the reps from the town that are going to be on this. Here's what the town's interest is. Here's the one thing you need to care about as you attend the meetings. And I think
Right.
that should be pretty straightforward. We can make sure, to reach out to either Cindy or the water engineer and get that information.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
So do you want me to go to those meetings or not?
What I might suggest is let's get sort of the size and shape of the town's interest first to determine whether and to what extent it would be worth sending you. And that's easily, that information is easily obtained, and either myself or Cindy Covell or the town's water engineer can make a recommendation to you about how useful what a good time or how useful your time would be.
Got it.
And whether it be, well spent there or if our interests are well covered, then maybe not.
Do they serve cocktails?
I don't think so. But we will find out.
Yep.
I mean, that would pique my interest. I don't know if they have a problem with attendance, but that's sure.
So, let's not take any action tonight on the Farmers Highline Canal proxy appointment. Upper Clear Creek Watershed, if you're willing to stay as the alternate for Ryan, that's great. Do you feel like Carl should be a second alternate, or do you feel we're covered?
Well, I don't mind being an alternate, but I bet you Carl is a little closer to Ryan's vest if he ever needs somebody short notice. So maybe making him an alternate might make a little smoother if he at the last minute can't make a meeting.
Okay.
Does that complicate things, or is that good?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, we can put it on a future, when we get a permanent administrator and we want to reinstate administrator's presence on there as an alternate. I think we just bring it back to the table and discuss it. But I think
I'm more than willing to step up there if you ever
okay.
So
Okay. Does anyone have any objection to having Carl be an additional alternate on that? Okay. Great. And then are you all okay with me backing up Cindy Neely on both the I-70 coalition and whatever other matters might occur in the near future till we get okay. Sounds great. Who would we can do that separately. What's Carl's last name?
Gulag, it's Gulag, I think.
I think it's Gulau. Yeah.
That's it, Gulau.
Yeah.
So I move to appoint Lynette Kelsey to the I-70 coalition.
Uh-huh.
And Carl Gulau to the Farmers Highline Canal proxy and Upper Clear Creek watershed. Nope, that's it.
Just to the Upper Clear Creek watershed. We're not making any change to the Farmers Highline tonight.
Okay, I ditto that. I said that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to appoint the police judge, Lynette Kelsey, to the I-7 as an alternate to the I-70 coalition and all other I-70 matters as needed, and to appoint Carl Gulau as an additional alternate to the Upper Clear Creek Watershed Commission. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Marvelous. Thank you so much.
Lynette?
Yes.
Before I leave, could I just do an FYI? I would like to report that CDOT did extend our time and our scope of work to include the lights that I spoke to you about at the meeting. And we received the contract amendment today. So Lynette, I hope I can find you tomorrow so we can sign the contract and get it gone.
Awesome.
Okay, sounds great. Are you, yeah, we'll work on that. Awesome. Great. Okay, next on the agenda, we have Clear Creek County Child Care Effort Subsidy Request. And Beth Luther is here with us tonight. Is Ula Karan here too?
No, she couldn't be here. I'm so sorry, but I'm going to try and give you as much information as I can. I'm changing my hats and moving forward the child care effort for our entire county. A few years ago, we wrote a grant to Henderson Mine to fund a child care assessment, which basically told us what we already knew. We are an extreme deficit of child care facilities in our county. We have about 6 different licenses, but one is on Floyd Hill and they have a 2-year waiting list. One is Loveland Ski Area that's only open 6 months out of the year. The pre-K is in the elementary schools, which we love because the schools get money the more students they have. So we'd love to leave pre-K there. And then there's a license at the rec center as well. So basically what we need is a centrally located child care center to service the entire county. We also learned in a housing assessment around the same time that we have more workers commuting into Clear Creek County for work than we do out of Clear Creek County, which I was super surprised about. And we found out that most employees like to keep their children close to where they work. So in case they have to go home quickly, they can grab their kids and head straight home. So we knew we were, at a shortage. The demand came in over 100 spots in need of childcare in our county, and that was a couple of years ago. So we know it's probably worse now. Anyway, we've come across, we recently got a grant from a group called EPIC, and they are professional childcare business developers, and they walk you through the whole process. They build a business plan. They teach you how to do the financials. They teach you how to successfully run a child care center, whether it's subsidized or not. I'm sure you've probably heard everywhere around us has subsidized childcare right now. Summit County, Jefferson County, it's kind of a given. And it's one of those hard to make money type deals. So, and we have a lot of kids on the West End, especially, that are service industry children, where the parents are both working odd hours. They're in the service industry, so they're working hotels, restaurants, things like that. So they don't work the regular 9 to 5. And finding childcare around these flex hours is super hard. So this EPIC grant will basically guide the childcare team through a process to help us develop a plan and hopefully land a site. We're kind of talking about a couple sites right now that we're really excited about. And we're looking centrally located, Idaho Springs, preferably. And the EPIC grant goes through February of 2022. The child care team really needs a coordinator. As you can imagine, everybody, we have a lot of volunteers in the county, but most of them are wearing multiple hats like you and me. So having a coordinator is key to getting us through this process successfully. And from this process, we apply for additional grants up to $800,000 to help us either acquire the property that we're interested in or remodel it. Most likely, the remodel is going to be the expensive part. So Ula Karen has really been carrying the ball since last spring, coordinating the effort. Economic development threw some money in the pot to keep her going. Henderson Mine put some money in the pot to keep her going. And now we got this awesome grant, and we really want to see it through to the end to get that, map to a successful facility that serves the entire county. And we believe that Ula Corinne can do that for us. So we crafted this request, and I based it exactly on when we did the census program, to where we have participation by all the municipalities and the school district and Henderson and economic development to try and come together and just spend a little bit of money each. And that way we keep Ula Corinne in place through the rest of the grant, as well as probably get her started on our big dollar grants that'll be coming up in early 2022. So our grant request to Georgetown was $1,500, and I'd love your consideration of it. If you have any questions, I will answer as much as I can and try and help you all make a decision.
Okay. Before I turn you loose with questions on Beth, I did discuss budgetary concerns with Mary Sims before she left, and we both agreed that with the sales tax revenues being higher than expected, we shouldn't have any trouble finding somewhere to take these funds from. If any, I general fund, if nothing else, miscellaneous. So I don't think that's an issue. So anybody have any questions for Beth?
You don't need a representative from the board then. You weren't asking for that, right?
No, not yet, but I might be back. No, I'm kidding.
And certainly not you, Rob.
Yeah.
She's kidding.
All the statutes of limitations have expired.
Yeah,
I'm in the clear now.
We don't serve drinks. Sorry.
Oh, well, that's a deal breaker for
In
me.
a sippy cup.
There you go. What a. So yes, Deanne.
I was wondering if there was information on the Old Mormon Church. Is that part of what you're talking about? Because I've seen different meetings at the county about it.
It was definitely something that has been brought to the commissioners by the child care team. The child care team did do a feasibility study on that site. It's a tough question. There are very many difficult decisions to make in the future. There are a lot of needs besides childcare. There's a huge housing effort going on right now as well. And that's another one that has also presenting a proposal for that site as well. So it's really in the hands of the county commissioners.
Do you have any information? They were talking, the one that I like best that I heard, they were going to surround the church with elder housing, and then the child care would be in the church. Is that still a viable whatever?
That proposal was made by Habitat for Humanity in conjunction with the community itself. And I don't know if the commissioners have formally said yes or no to that. I know they did receive a presentation and they did ask a lot of questions. And we have that presentation plus and there's a second one for also multifamily housing. And then the third one was just the daycare center itself. So there's a few proposals on the table for the commissioners to decide.
Well, and I imagine considering how you phrased it originally, there are a couple of other sites that they're interested in, have not made a decision. And I don't think that needs to inform our decision. So I think the effort needs to move forward regardless of how it ends up, because this is definitely an important issue for all of the parents in Clear Creek County with kids of an age that need daycare. So we can't all send them down to Rich and say, take care of it, Rich.
Yeah.
Beth, are the other communities stepping up as per your request? And if everyone is not, is the county prepared to move forward on this with other financial support of their own or whatever, so that ULA or whomever is in that position to carry it out at least through February 2022?
I will definitely make that ask if that happens. Yeah, so far the people I've heard from, they are definitely in on their contributions. So
Okay.
I haven't heard from everybody, to be totally honest. I haven't heard from everyone, but I know it's an important issue to everybody on that list that I sent you. And I've had nothing but positive comments so far. So yeah, I will be, if we come up short, I will beg and plead my bosses.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Any other questions? Was that Rob or?
I was ready to move to approve, but are there any other questions? Well then, I move to approve the contribution of $1,500 to the town of Georgetown to support the Early Child Care Development Committee towards the support and funding the coordinator wages through February 22nd or February 2022.
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the contribution of $1,500 from the town of Georgetown to support the Early Child Care Development Committee towards the support of funding the coordinator wages through February 2022. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Beth.
Thanks
Thanks,
so much,
Beth.
Yeah,
everybody.
thanks, Beth.
We'll keep you posted.
Thanks so much. Appreciate your help.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Next, we have staff items. First one is Road and Bridge Superintendent. Do we know if Scott is here yet? Or Steve, are you ready to?
Jen's calling him right now, so I think he's getting close.
Okay.
But I can cover it if I have to.
All right. Well, why don't, while we're waiting for him to get on board, under COVID update, I just had a announcement to make. I don't know if everybody's heard, but there is a new vaccine van in the county that will be available at the new clinic in Idaho Springs this Friday in the parking lot. It's available for vaccines of all 3 types from 8 a.m. to 11:15 a.m. So just wanted to make that announcement. And a reminder that the Bighorn Sheep Festival is this Saturday. Just letting everybody know.
How about what time's on the sheep festival? Like, when's it start?
Oh, you would have to ask. There's information all over town, but I didn't register on the time.
I'm pretty sure it's 10 to 4.
It's
All right.
Scott is not going to be joining us tonight.
Okay. Okay, Steve, did you want to take it then?
I can probably take the dumping of in public trash cans. I think it's historically a problem everywhere. However, I think that staff and Marshall Williams can kick in if he wants to. Has a 2-pronged approach that may at least give the item some teeth. First, a possible resolution to identify where people can and cannot dump trash, and stating that the public trash cans and dumpsters are not allowable for trash from, I don't know if it's from residences or not. And then once that's been in place, if the selectmen are interested in looking at that, then obviously posting the dumpsters as we have, I know I have in other communities, and cite the code infringement and stuff like that. And then that gives the police department authority to go and ticket if necessary. I don't know how huge a problem is. It's probably this time of year, not much. But I do think that their selection of how to proceed is admirable, and I think it's effective to the extent it can be. And Randy, you want to jump in there at all?
Yeah, I think I need to talk with Scott a little bit more and see if this is a localized problem or if it's everywhere. As I'm thinking about some of the complaints, they've been related to the downtown 6th Street businesses that have apartments above. Most of them have dumpsters, not all of them have dumpsters. And I think it might be localized down to where the businesses or the properties that don't have dumpsters for their tenants is the problem, and we can address it differently. I was going to get Gerald involved and see, these are public trash cans that are we going to, I get the idea of the problem with the household trash filling them up, but we'll have to see if that's something that is done in a lot of places for public trash receptacles.
Randy, I know that Scott was mentioning like at the park and the lake when he was talking to me about it, just casual, you know.
And I had not heard anything about the lake. It sure would surprise me if residents from up in the neighborhood took their trash down and found the trash can at the lake. It wouldn't totally amaze me because nothing amazes me anymore, but I haven't heard that part of it. I've only heard about complaints on 6th.
So I guess let Randy talk to Scott a little bit more. Let us put the heads together. Maybe we'll talk to Jerry a little bit about the potential need for any change to the town code or what may not be a necessary effect of what he's seen in other communities. And we will revisit this item later.
Okay, sounds good.
As far as the 22nd Street Bridge, I didn't get to town until pretty late today. And so I didn't get a chance to talk to Scott. One of the things, though, that is going to hold us up a little bit on this project is that there's actually an old USGS monument.
7 o'clock.
There is. Yep.
Yep.
He's learning what our system works like. I know Mary was talking about the bids to do the 22nd Street were pretty steep to get that bridge installed, even though the material's already purchased.
You hear me? Okay.
Now we can hear you.
Okay. The internet freezes at 7 o'clock for some reason.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we do have the guidelines from the federal government as to how to move those. It takes a licensed surveyor to be able to come in and move it. And it's not a painful process, which is sort of surprising for the federal government. But Scott has been in communication with, or trying to get a hold of, a surveyor that's local. That surveyor hasn't returned his phone call to date. He's tried a couple of times. So we're going to approach that and getting a hold of him in a little different manner and see if we can get a discussion with him. And I know Scott was going to look at identifying or addressing the concerns that the selectmen had at the last meeting with regard to the bridge and engineer that's on staff with his company that's proposing to do the work, and get some background on other projects they've done of this nature, et cetera. So again, I don't know where he is with that, but with this USGS thing, us getting this done in December or 2021 is not looking real positive, but we will continue to work forward on it and hope we can bring you up to date on the 23rd and see if you're ready to move forward with offering up a contract with these folks. But that's what I know today.
Okay, thank you. John Jennings has a question.
Did anybody contact Jules about the last bridge? They're identical sizes, 15th Street. I went and measured them, and I was just curious if anybody contacted him, because he successfully put that other one in just with a simple lift.
Well, I do know that he's not a licensed contractor, so the town couldn't retain him. But I don't know that Scott really had talked to him about particularly the bridge to do what they need to do. So Scott would have to answer that question for you.
Is the only thing I wanted to say is that Jules did it as the road and bridge, and I just wondered if it would be the same thing if Scott would just drill the holes and put the bolts in. It's a kit type of setup.
Yeah.
Not engineer. We don't have to recreate engineering or anything for it. It's just install it.
Yeah. I don't have the answers for you,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. So revisit that at a future meeting. Steve has provided us with an interim town administrator report. Did you have any questions for him, or Steve, do you want to?
Well, yeah, I always say I have provided you a written report, and I got just a couple things that I need to discuss. One thing that I need to discuss with you, obviously, the filling out of the selection survey by the members of the board is important. It's important to me as I move forward with a review of potential candidates to determine what really is important to you and what may not be as important, and realizing that every candidate isn't a perfect match for every single item attribute on the list. So if you could, please fill that out and either bring it into town hall or scan and email it to me, whatever works for you. I think the thing that I need some input on is if we're wanting to move forward with this, and I think Lynette and I have discussed this, and I think that we're both in agreement that there's no reason to wait. Actually, this might be a prime time. What we have found is that a lot of folks, don't have time to look for jobs of this type until they get to take some time off with the family for the holidays. So we'll be able to go through the advertisement process, not only through the majority of the Thanksgiving holiday, but also Christmas up until the end of the year. So if you're ready to move forward, I've given you a proposed timeline for that, and which suggests that it works really well to get somebody on board as soon as possible. It's a workable timeline. I'll look at it again one more time and double check my calendar before I bring it back to the board for approval. The other thing that I did was you also have to, according to state statute, identify the hiring process. And so to the extent possible, I've put together an outline as to what could be expected by a candidate as we move through that hiring process. And so hopefully it's pretty self-explanatory. I can sure answer any questions. And then the last item discussion was just a note to you all. And that is with the Fair Equal Pay Act that went into effect the first of the year, the advertisements need to look a little different to ensure that there is no intent of discrimination. So it's not that big. I do have a couple of examples that I can use. Basically you are allowed to create a pay range, and I don't know what your pay range is. You guys do probably. And then you go and you list the benefits that you're willing to offer for the position. And in this instance, it's probably the same as everybody else, which is appropriate, and that's the way it should be. As far as health insurance, blah, 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 blah. How much you contribute to the retirement, what type of retirement is, how many days off do you get, vacation, sick leave, or PTO, whatever you have. It is fairly basic, but it's those things that you can't vary from. So I'm familiar with a lot of managers that come in, administrators come in, contract negotiations, and the first thing they want is they want to walk in the door with 20 to 40 hours of leave. And if that's something that the board would want to consider, then we would put that in the advertisement so that they're aware of the fact that whether you're male or female or of what race you are, that you're all getting offered the same thing at the same time. The only thing that I'm not 100% clear on, but I don't think it would hurt to put in there is do you offer a housing stipend, a vehicle allowance, all these things. Those are things that I think as benefits we need to identify and then advertise them. And that's why I say between now and the 23rd, think about that. And by the time we get to the 23rd, I will give or prepare a sheet to assist you guys in walking through those various items that we'll go over on the 23rd before we approve all of this. And so don't think, oh, I got to figure this all out on my own. No, I'll help you. I just wanted to put the bug in your ear that things have changed just a little bit, and I think we can comply without problems. So the main question is, does the proposed timeline is obviously my preferred. Is the timeline look acceptable to you all? And then is the outline of the hiring process adequate? Do you have any questions? Or this is the way I do it all the time. Even if it was a department head, I do pretty well the same thing. And I can answer any questions. If not, then just tell me everything looks fine, and I will get everything ready for the 23rd. See, John's cutting to the chase. He's not wasting no time.
That's right.
Looked great to me. I appreciate you putting it together too.
I'm fine with the timeline. However, I would like the board more involved with the process, specifically with the screening of the applicants, so that is not just on Steve's shoulders, and also the preliminary phone interview of the semifinalists. I'd like to see this board more involved in that. And then also when we get down to the finalists and the interviews, I know I've been approached by some of our commissions that they would like to be represented on the interview panel, which I know we can figure out, as it gets closer to that time. But I wanted to throw out those 3 specific pieces at this point.
Sounds good to me.
My concern is that it needs to happen, quickly. A lot of times when we have a lot more moving parts with different groups, you get sidelined with stuff. So if you can figure out how to make it all work really quickly, then we won't lose out on people, waiting for decisions.
And I can appreciate that. And I'm certainly willing to put my hand up to assist Steve in those 2, more preliminary or initial parts of the process. This is someone that we, the board, and this town is going to be working with for several years down the line, hopefully. And I just think that we want to, I want to be accountable for that. And I would hope that all of us would like to have that.
So Steve and I have talked a lot about how his screening runs, and actually I'd prefer that Steve present it to you because it makes a lot of sense to me, the way he approaches it. Are you okay with presenting that, Steve?
I am. Number one, it does, obviously, I appreciate the offer and I understand what Mary's saying. And I've done modifications of this process before, so it's not wholly uncommon. The one thing I would say is that it's not as streamlined up until the point of the finalists by having multiple people involved. And I could sure work that way if you want, but I would believe that it would probably be more important for the entire board to be involved in that early screening before the semifinalists are actually selected. We did that in Rocky Ford, and we were able to do it because I didn't make any of the names open. I keep a matrix of who they are, where they're from, salary requirements, educational requirements, all that sort of stuff. And I shared that with the city council in Rocky Ford. And I said, okay, so here's my yes list and maybe list and no list. And do you see what I'm talking about? And I explained it to them, but we're not using any names. So we're not breaking any confidentiality rules because Colorado Those names are not to be made public until such time as the finalists have been selected by the board. As far as participating in the interviews, it doesn't make as much difference to me. I have done that. We did that in Manitou Springs. I think it was myself. They hired me as a consultant to interview for interim administrator candidates. And I think I had the mayor and the mayor pro tem and you know, it works, but what it was is that they didn't participate. I asked all the questions. They just were able to hear the answers. And then after we debriefed and had a little bit of a discussion, I'm okay. This is your process. I'm here, and it's you know, I'm just saying that if we do it to the extent that the board's going to do a review before the semifinals selection, it's going to take an extra meeting, and that may slow everything down by a week or two, by about 2 weeks. I'm not opposed to that. With regard to maybe having what I want to say, a selection committee made up of various commissions and boards, I'm not opposed to that. The one thing that I have heard from councils and boards before, when they've done that, or even when they've had the finalists, which is almost impossible to do now with COVID, finalists get together and have a meet and greet with the community. What the council has really told me is that makes them feel uncomfortable, because they then feel beholden to going with what somebody else is selecting, when it's the board of selectmen that's really empowered to make that decision. I have seen, you know, we can do a selection committee process, but that will be difficult, because there's a set of questions that I generally do during the semifinals interview that's complemented by the questions that the board asks during the finalist interview. And there's a reason for that. I'm in the semifinalist portion of the process. I'm doing technical assessments and really tearing apart at their ability to do certain things, even in accordance with the attributes that the board finds important. Whereas you all will be concentrating on fit and feel. And that is the thing that only you all can do. I can't even help and give advice or recommendation as to what Georgetown really wants with their administrators. So that gets a little more cumbersome, especially in today's days of times. With COVID, we still haven't discussed whether we're going to try to do one-on-one interviews or board interviews with each of the finalists, or if you're going to try to do it Zoom. I believe wholly in the value of the in-person interviews, but I also understand that y'all need to be cautious. And we did it in Elizabeth. We didn't kill anybody off yet. But I spent a lot of time sanitizing a lot of things over that 2 day of interviews, because with our first meeting will be with the department heads the day before those interviews. And again, I can try to do whatever you all think works real well. I would ask that Jerry weigh in with regard to doing the finalist interviews. I'm accustomed to doing those interviews in executive session, which in my opinion then precludes your ability to have members of the planning commission or design review committee in there, because they're not parties that are can be enjoined in an executive session in that manner. Am I correct, Jerry?
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely.
Okay. So it becomes a little more difficult if you're going to have a normal process, which you're not receiving any intrusions during the finalist interviews, to bring other members in to that interview. But we can work through that as we go. Again, I understand and appreciate what Mary has to say, but like Lynette and I said, we talked about the various possibilities of what can and cannot happen, and how to best do it. And again, this is your process. I'm just here to facilitate it. I've given you something that works fairly quickly. It's been real effective, at least for the last, 14 or 16 that I've done. And you guys let me know.
Okay. Let's hear from the board. John,
Yeah,
how do you feel about?
I'd like to go with the, how it's printed out here, and have it more streamlined. I've done I don't know how many of these things I've done, and it seems like it takes too long, and then the candidates that you choose, you lose them because they've gone on to other things, after a lot of hard work. So the faster, kind of more professional suits me better.
Okay. Paul, what do you feel about this?
I agree with John 100%. We have a process that has worked for Steve in the past, and I'd like to keep it streamlined and not get hung up on other committees or as such to select the right person. So I like what I see in front of me.
Okay. Deanne, yes.
Can we see the contract that we had with Kent? I'd like to see an example of what we have agreed to in the past, what's reasonable, what our previous town administrators have used, been part of, agreed to.
Definitely a public document, so we'll ship it out to you guys, all of you. And again, I'll be
Right.
putting together the worksheet too, but I agree with you, Deanne, that it would be important for the board to understand what you have done in the past and probably stick fairly close. I would assume that his contract is very similar to almost everyone that everybody else has got, but they all have their little quirks. But I appreciate your asking for it, and we will endeavor to get you a copy very soon.
Okay. Thank you. I was going to suggest the same thing. Thanks. Rob.
I just think it would be a nice thing to have like somebody from, I think you're just talking about the promotions committee, right, Mary?
Well, they were one of them that had suggested it, but I'm also, I don't think an extra set of eyes along with Steve on the initial screening and the phone interview of the semifinalists is going to impede this process. And, when we get to the finalist interviews, that's where we would be talking, not only would the board be involved in that, but other members of the community, similar to the interview panel that we had set up when we hired Kent, when we hired our last town administrator.
I mean, I'm all for streamlining it. So, I mean, if these folks can not be the sand in the ointment kind of thing, I mean,
I don't think they have to be involved in the smaller pieces or the preliminary pieces. If one of us is available, and like I said, I'm not throwing this out there and pointing my finger at someone else to volunteer. I would be willing to do that and make my schedule so that it's convenient for Steve when he's doing the screening and the interviews. But I think we need to, our commissions, and as any other resident, certainly have, their interests of Georgetown's future in mind. And we would want to have that, we would like them to be a part of this process also at the finalist stage.
So are you talking about actual interviews, or are you talking that we figure out some safe way to do a nice meet and greet?
So when I'm looking at your proposal on your outline for the finalists scheduled for interviews, that's what, and I can see where we certainly want our candidates to be present in the town if they haven't already had the opportunity to be in Georgetown. I don't necessarily want to do a Zoom interview on a finalist and they're in East McKeesport having never been to Georgetown. You know, they need to be here and to see the operations of as far as the interview. I don't have a problem being in the room, you know, with everybody sitting here on this board and a few other people and the candidate in that sense. So is that the point that you were asking about? Or
I think
previous one?
as Jerry confirmed, you could not do those interviews in private. They'd have to be open to the public. And so if you're going to invite a commission member from the planning commission, you also have to expect that any member of the public has a right to show up to that. And so that could be a bit difficult if you're trying to do something safe and practiced. I think, you know, the meet and greet works very well. You could have these interest groups. Everybody can be masked up. They can, you know, et cetera, have these interest groups, give them a date. You probably would do it the evening before the board interviews and have those groups come and you do an initial introduction and comments by the candidates, and then have them just mix and mingle. And then the board, when we did Salida, there was a lot of Salida council that was already there, and everybody just gave them their heads up and opinions. Did the same thing in Lamar, and it worked really well. But what I really get concerned about is if we can't have an executive session, you have to have a public meeting, and that means anybody could show up, and that could be really problematic from a health standpoint.
No, and I can understand that. And we did the meet and greet, you know, set up, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, when we did our last town administrator. And I think that, you know, served its purpose. And then the board, you know, took the candidates in and did the final interview. I just, as long as we are somehow preparing for the opportunity for our community to have some type of interaction with the candidates, it addresses their concerns. Whether they show up, you know, they can all speak up to it now and say, oh yeah, I want to make sure that I'm a part of it and blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, do they show? Who knows? Kind of thing. But at least we have to give them the opportunity. And so we have to plan for that, whether it's a Zoom opportunity or whether it's a face-to-face, which obviously I think would be better.
Yeah.
So
Rob's going to do cocktails, so I think we'll have a really good turnout.
Yeehaw, come on.
Okay. Well, here's what I'm hearing, and what I think would be the best is that when we get to the point before I make a selection of semifinalists, I'm going to put in a couple weeks extra in there so that I can give the entire board during a meeting that spreadsheet of those candidates and my breakdown of that. And that way it doesn't put the burden just on Mary too. I do think this is good for the entire board. We can do it during the context of a regular meeting. So I'm really not bothered by it. And then Mary and Al will discuss as to the semifinalist interviews, how she feels most comfortable in participating if she wants to participate. And I'm okay with having those discussions too. Then we would look at adhering to the remainder of the process and look at doing some kind of meet and greet at some location with the candidates that the board will then interview the next day. Does that sound fairly close to what you're talking about, Mary?
It's a good compromise. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. And last but not least, Rich.
I went through as a volunteer on this process for the rec center board, and it's just I appreciate streamlining the process, because we, as a volunteer, we had the matrices selecting questions, and it just took a long time to put that whole process together, Steve. So I appreciate you doing that, and I believe, Mary, that I think you can work with Steve so that way some of these other commissions can have a voice also.
Cool.
Okay. Sounds good to me. Are any other board members besides Mary interested in being closer involved, more involved in the process?
Well, we can't have too many of you because then we all of a sudden have a legal meeting, so.
That's okay. I'll
Understand.
take the heat for everybody else, and then they can all point the finger at me when this, we want to, get rid of the guy or person after 6 months.
Go Mary.
I have
The
broad
good thing,
shoulders.
the good
I can
thing
take
about,
it.
the good thing about it, Mary, is that since you're getting a new laptop with a camera for Christmas, you'll be all prepared for
I
these.
know,
semifinals.
exactly. I'll be ready.
All right. All right. Sounds good. So,
I don't have anything else
okay. Okay.
on that anyway.
All right. Where did I put? Where did? Oh, there's my agenda. Okay. So we did that. Deanne had asked if anyone had an update on the Gateway banners.
I can address that on behalf of the Business Promotions Commission. So basically the short answer to that, Deanne, is that they are working and discussing to come up with a resolution for the banners. So TBD, but there will be a plan.
How quickly are they going to move on it? I'm thinking Christmas market is rushing at us and they look kind of unprofessional.
I could almost guarantee you that they will not be in place for Christmas market.
We're going to have to live with the existing for now. So
hopefully it'll be snowing pretty and no one will notice.
They won't. So, okay. Mary, you had a question on the Bighorn apartments or a concern?
So 2 questions, and this is really my best place to ask Jerry these questions. I've had contact with several residents over in Bighorn, and 2 issues have come up that I would just like us to be aware of, or to make sure that the information is factual. One is in reference to the ever-changing management and or ownership of Bighorn. And the concern is from the town standpoint, is there a possibility, Jerry, that if those buildings were sold, are we on solid ground that they remain as apartments and not turned over into condos, which was an issue for us when we were approving the plans and a moratorium went in place, and you remember all of that. And that's just more of a futuristic outlook, I guess, or question. To the best of my knowledge, that hasn't come up yet, but that's what they're hinting at. And that's what I'm being told is, the concern over there.
My recollection is that the agreements that we put together and the limitations we put on bind successors and assigns, and were designed to protect against that eventuality, irrespective of who owned it, which is sort of, which, if the agreements are written right, I'm happy to look. It's can appreciate been a couple of years, so I don't have the details in my head, but if it's written properly, the ownership is irrelevant.
Okay, and I appreciate that refresher, and I think to be ahead of the game, only because it has changed hands. It just might, or at least under the management piece. I don't know if it's been sold as far as the buildings. It would just be a comfort for us to know that that isn't going to happen, which would be opposite to what we had hoped for that property. Then the other thing is the way the residents are being billed for the water. And obviously each apartment isn't under their own meter. And so there seems to be, they charge per person on each apartment as to who's on the tenant list. And so for most apartments actually based on their occupation, occupied, whatever, however many people live in the darn apartment, they're paying more than we in our own homes or apartments seem to be paying. And so can Bighorn turn around and just charge whatever? And are we as a town comfortable with that? That they're, the residents there are possibly paying more for water than what we're charging them for water?
Well, I'd highly recommend that the apartment arena, that's one of the reasons you don't have an individualized meter relationship with the residents. That's the relationship there is the apartment owners, along with all the other attributes of the lease, what they're going to, how often they're going to, empty trash or whatever. And I really would not advise the town somehow become involved in that landlord-tenant relationship. I just wouldn't. If you were to do that, then you're doing that for the entire class of consumers of water in the town, and that is not a step that I'd recommend at all. It's a landlord-tenant relationship that the town is always happy to say when other problems in landlord-tenant relationships come up. That's a civil matter between those two parties and isn't something the town governs.
Okay, that's fine. And I appreciate that, just because that allows me to respond in an appropriate manner. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. The next item was also you, Mary, something about the Christmas decorations on 6th Street.
Yeah, and Steve, you might have even more of an update from your email. A couple of 6th Street merchants had reached out and were concerned about the decorations going on down there. And I think one of them specifically was the size of the wreaths. And I understand that some new products have been purchased and, they're different. We all understand that some people expect it to be the same. So I know when we had discussed the decorations at the last meeting and how Road and Bridge was going to get them up and whether or not they needed to bring in other equipment or hire somebody or whatever to do it. So I just kind of wondered if you couldn't give us what you know of as of this minute, as opposed to earlier in the day, Steve, so we can pass that along.
Well, I think you hit it right on the head as far as the wreaths. Scott looked at what was there from last year. It's pretty ratty, and so they did go out and buy brand new, but no, it's not the same as it was. But we're almost to Christmas, and it's a little difficult to find Christmas decorations.
Oh, I hear you.
I'm not even sure we can make a Walmart run down in the entire Denver metro area and come up with enough ribbons to be able to replace that. Scott, well, I told you in the email, Mary, but, Scott and I talked about the condition of those Christmas decorations and some of the improvements. We talked about at the staff level, some of the things that have been done, changing lights out to the LEDs and stuff like that. But that's a discussion those are things that have to be done in June and July, not the last minute, because even if you wanted to order it right now, you would never get it between now and next Thanksgiving. So that's all I know right now. Jen brought up a good point. You may want to think about it as a board, because it gives you plenty of time to do something about it if you want to. And that is the Christmas decorations, especially in downtown, are extremely important to this community. And I understand it. I've been putting them up since I was a kid. And I understand how it's a fickle thing. You guys may, if it's that important, you may want to hire someone to professionally come in and put up decorations. You can put the specifications as of what you want to see, but it's incumbent upon those people to do something that may not be really in the heart of the Road and Bridge guys to really be empathetic towards, I guess, to say a better word. And I'm not taking away from them. I think they've done a good job with where they were set. With just basically thrown into it with really not a whole lot of folks on staff that had any experience with it. But that may be an alternative. Doesn't mean that nobody will complain about it, but the professionals know what they're doing. There's a gentleman that's doing a tree, Jen said, here, a big tall tree, and they can meet the schedule. They can make sure their lights are all up to date. Everything's ready to go. And maybe something you want to think about, because I can tell you that moving forward, if you want to change out decorations and upgrade them, it's going to be expensive. And I think it's going to be real tough to find materials. It's just, I think there's a backlog. It could get cleared up by next year. But take it from a guy that has redone Christmas decorations, it's not the funnest of jobs. Deanne, you had a question.
I just have a comment that we're already getting too many outworlders doing things that aren't in sync with Georgetown. I'd be real concerned about hiring an outworlder company. We need to keep it in community so that community feels involved and has the input. You don't just hand it over to somebody else. And I think we're wasting a lot of money in general on different things. So I just don't think hiring somebody's good. I think we need to keep it ourselves.
I just throw it out there as an option for the board to think about, because you're coming up the next year. I think, we can spend money fixing decorations. It'd probably be about the same as having somebody else have the responsibility, but I don't disagree with Selectman Powell in that opinion too. But from an old public works standpoint, it'd be nice to blame have everybody complain about somebody else's work rather than my own. That's okay. I've been doing this a long time.
Yep. So just, I was thinking back several years when I was the liaison to the Parks and Rec Commission, and they tend, that kind of thing comes out of their budget. And they did look at the possibility of hiring it out to a professional company. But at the time, it was a whole lot more expensive than our budget would support. It might be worth looking into again, just to see what the cost is. So
yeah, I have no idea. It's not something
I don't know.
My Cruise and Canyon did it because we had a bucket truck from the forestry department. I mean, and we ended up putting all the silhouette lights across the top of the entire run of Main Street on both sides, which stayed there all year long. So.
Yes, Deanne.
In 2019, we USA Today did a survey about the 10 best Christmas markets in the United States. Georgetown came in number 3. So obviously what we're doing is right. I don't trust outworlders to be in sync with Georgetown.
Well, and I understand your point. I am also not suggesting that we hire somebody and then turn a blind eye to whatever they're proposing to do. It's not like, they definitely would have parameters and their proposed design. I just don't even know what the cost is. So if we're going to go in that direction, investigate the cost so that it can be worked into the budget. I'm not saying that would be the best idea, the worst idea. I'm just, as an option, we don't know what it would cost these days. So, but your point's well taken.
Yeah. Is that something that the board as a whole would like? I mean, I agree. We don't need to jump right on the bandwagon, but is it something the board would be interested enough to maybe let us do a cursory review of what we think it might run and report back to you sometime after the first of the year?
Sure, if time allows. I wouldn't put it on top priority. I would say let's get through Christmas. Let's see how the decorations look and how they hold up, and let's take a look at it next year.
I think the only reason I suggest the timeline, and no, I'm not going to put this as top priority, but I suggest the timeline is because if the decision is no, we're not going to do that, but we need to fix decorations, we're going to need to put those orders in probably very early in the first of the year. Otherwise, it won't get delivered in time.
Sure.
I would be interested in having Road and Bridge spend more time on Road and Bridge than doing decorations too, since they seem like they're kind of stretched as it is.
I would like to know how many man hours it takes to put them up and take them down. Because then you can put a budget on it and account for how long it takes.
Well, and even going through and sorting through everything and make sure all the light bulbs are working, and holy cow, it's not just an overnight thing. Yeah, I know. Scott was screaming and kicking when I called him up on that bridge deal that one day, because they had gotten everything out and it was just all over the shop floor, and they're trying to figure out what goes where. So there's some time, but I appreciate your opinion, and we will get some idea on that.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate all that. I will share that on to those who have contacted me.
Yeah, Mary, I'm sorry. I mean,
No,
I
I
know
think
that some of
that's
the, I
great.
know that some of the things got repaired, some of the LED lights, but some of them are just, boy, I tell you, it's tough, but it's just, they found it out. They found it out too late. They're on schedule as far as when they were supposed to put up the decorations, but
Sure.
they didn't have any idea since they they didn't put them away. They didn't know what they're going to look like when they pulled them out of the boxes.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think that's, valid information. So thank you again.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anybody have anything more on any of these topics or any other concern that just popped into our heads? If not, great meeting. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved to adjourn and seconded. It is 7:44 p.m. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all very much.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
Lynette. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Hey guys, thank you.
Thank you.